My closing remarks for Impressions of Baltimore from My Perspective, Part 8. These are my closing remarks for Part 8 of Impressions of Baltimore from My Perspective. In my closing remarks, I have heard in my inner ear, "Don't be you. Who else would I be if I were not myself?" This movie stems from the understanding that I felt it is necessary. I additionally brought on my own experiences, knowing that any time I could not succeed out of my goals, that something was severely wrong, having lost out in America so many times. Though I certainly would not deny myself any positive outcome from this video, this is not an attempt to make it about myself, but to demonstrate what is happening. My life has not been easy as some would expect, as it started off early teens in one of the most prestigious, then majorly white, all-girls high school, where I was told by a white counselor that I would be better off going to a black college than a practically all-white college in Virginia. I must say, there were a few exceptions like that, as my schoolmate, peers, and teachers were mostly great and very friendly. As a result, I graduated from Howard University with a degree in chemistry, which I am proud of. I took all forms of transportation to my jobs: bus, train, car, and taxi. I worked my way up from a laboratory assistant to a professional chemist in the government, until I became ill and went out on disability with multiple chemical sensitivities and complications. I had worked with many chemicals, many of which could rival Army Agent Orange. I kept my small business, which I felt could sustain me, but I found out along the way that what I was told early on in life was true. We as a race have to work much, much harder to reach our goals. With regards to my business as producer, I had a quintuple whammy and possible other hindrances. I'm Afro-American, female, have a disability, over 60, and have a very high IQ. Being Afro-American was enough, but having a small business as a female in title of producer was surely in juxtaposition to a white male producer. Additionally, I was given gifts of the Spirit, which enabled me to move along with what I was achieving with a high IQ, as Afro-Americans are stigmatized for sports abilities. Also, all the while as I struggled, I was additionally chronologically increasing. It did not matter that I was breathing in hazardous chemicals at a job where I got little thanks and lower pay compared to a man playing sports on a field. I have been faced with comments like, "You don't look like you are Irish," even though I am 10% British and Irish out of 30% European DNA, which I intuitively felt long before the DNA test. A white guy once asked me to forgive him because he did not ask me to stay with my then husband and I because I was black. I remember on one occasion I was asked to perform a procedure from memory on an instrument after being shown by a racially biased supervisor. I did the procedure perfectly, at which she explained I needed to do it again because I did not do it right, even though I did it perfectly. Everyone knew this supervisor was racially biased and talked about it. The other thing is that my own race has been biased by stigma into believing the I-we concept are not good enough to get what is needed. So we become invisible in many ways by those who view us like that and cut off from the rest. Or we become entangled in groups which exclude the rest of us. Along the way, I also realized that people kept on wanting to connect me with rhythm, jazz, hip-hop, reggae, or whatever, instead of the classical new age and instruments I played that the Spirit opened me up. My inner ear keeps on nagging, "Are you doing you?" But thoughts arise when I remember trying to get a write-up from the Baltimore Sun newspaper and how I was practically held invisible while the Baltimore Afro-American newspaper published an article on my music. On the way to my second calling, music, I was being constantly pulled by pitfalls that had nothing to do with that. I was surviving in intricate, complex patterns, semi-homeless with my parents, trying to get away from Baltimore City as chronological and physicality increased. After always trying to make something of myself and years of pursuing this, even though I had been a chemist, I realized I had been had. I began to look around at conditions here in Baltimore, where there are closed-in neighborhoods and lots of control and no clear, clean, wholesome vibrations of real living as our white counterparts. I realized that these conditions are not only in Baltimore. I was an African-American female overachiever living in Baltimore, semi-homeless. As those who have followed along with me well know, I am an overachiever. I would have cherished having been given action out of faith and hope. To be given hope, to have hope, and to pass it on, and then the moment of truth results from that hope to come out of the intricate and complex survival patterns I am living through. I should have been one of the richest women in America, in my opinion. I know that I made this movie and I had to. This is the 8th and last section. With regards to what I have said, there is lots I needed to say, but this would have been much, much more extensive. There are a number of organizations which need to involve themselves in working out resolutions and solutions to these kinds of living conditions for individuals with varied situations, no matter who they are. Even though they are very large organizations, that does not mean that they should ignore you. To discriminate against a person is a tragedy because of hearsay, race, gender, color, religious affiliation, financial status, disability, facial features, etc. It is a tragedy both for the person discriminated against and the person doing it. Those organizations which could actively reach out to an individual are the NAACP, the Peace Corps, Project Hope, the United Nations, Counseling and Connective Services, the World Health Organization, UNICEF, the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor, the Bureau of Health and Human Services, the U.S. Department of State, the clergy. I find that organizations such as these need to step in to guide, reorganize, and create smaller organizations that are supposed to be helping, especially disability organizations, which I find do not answer or give a formal boxed answer or do not have the facility. I was compelled to make this movie and took time out from my normal video music production and other projects to do this movie. I may, depending on my health, do a movie on the Afro-American female. I have traveled far and wide. Let the works I've done speak for me. Signing off, Sheryl Fisher, President of Araxis 3 Productions. Thank you.